Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's had a great week out there as we head off into our weekend. Speaking of the weekend, it's going to be a big one. We're trying to figure out what's going to happen early to midway next week, as we will have the return of severe weather, unfortunately. Tuesday into Wednesday will be the two big days to watch. So we're going to speak on everything that we know in this video. The first thing we'll go over is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. We'll talk about the system that's driving this multi-day setup of severe weather. We'll speak on all the ingredients, kind of nerd out with you guys a little bit, try to explain this the best way we can for you guys as the audience to understand. And we'll just get very detailed. And as we get closer, we'll be able to look at some of these short-range models that kind of show the structure of these storms, things like that. Is this going to be more of a squall line, a discrete sort of setup that would obviously bring more of a higher-end tornado threat? We'll speak on all that as we get closer and the details begin to emerge a little bit better. But we will speak on everything that we know. We'll talk about the winter weather side of this system, as I do think there will be one. It's just how high impact will the winter weather side be. And then we'll cover today's weather, like we always do in these morning videos, and then I'll let you guys be free. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. And I haven't had a chance to read over the comments from the post I made yesterday evening on social media. I did get my plaque from YouTube, that YouTube sends people that get over 100,000 subscribers. It was really cool just seeing it. It was a cool moment coming home from work yesterday evening and just, opening up and seeing it for myself. But thank you for all the kind words just ahead of time. I have not read all of them yet, but just thank y'all for, as always, just supporting what I do here. So let's get rocking and rolling. So this is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. This was updated a couple hours ago. We still have an enhanced risk, and now at day 5, because obviously we're a day closer. It was day 6 yesterday. So day 5, this is for next Tuesday. And then day 6, which I'll show you here in a second, is for next Wednesday. So this is going to be the big day, I do think, is next Tuesday. So if you live in this orange area, at day 5, this is what we call a 30% risk area in the orange. So that means you have a 30% risk of any severe weather. They fine-tune it as it gets inside day 4, from day 3 to day 1. That's when they'll kind of fine-tune it and say, hey, okay, there's a percent chance of tornadoes in this area, percent chance of hail, percent chance of damaging winds. Right now, this means at day 5, there is an enhanced risk, a level 3 out of 5 risk of severe weather, which is pretty uncommon, even at day 5. And they already had this up at day 6. It's uncommon enough just to get the 15% risk area, which is in the yellow. So, like I said, that's a 15% risk of any severe weather, hail, damaging winds, tornadoes. We will know more as we get closer, but they're already highlighting this area. It's a pretty large area, pretty large enhanced risk. I mean, this includes all the way from the Boot Hill, Missouri, southwestern areas of Kentucky, through the western portions of Tennessee, including Jackson, Mississippi. It just seems like this area always is getting some sort of wild weather, whether it's winter storms, severe weather, a mixture of both within 3 days of one another. But all the way down to Jackson, Mississippi, Monroe, Shreveport, all the way down to almost Alexandria, but Pine Bluff, now Little Rock included into this, Jonesboro, El Dorado. You guys have an enhanced risk at day 5, level 3 out of 5. That means, it can downtrend. Sometimes that happens, but a lot of times it either stays the same or it uptrends. The next risk category is a moderate risk. The next one after that is level 5 out of 5, the infamous high risk, which would show up in the pink. So what's surrounding this is a slight risk. This goes all the way up to St. Louis, a little bit north of St. Louis, actually, all the way back over to Nashville, over to Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, down to Meridian, Hattiesburg, Baton Rouge, not quite down to New Orleans, but that could tweak in the later outlooks. All the way over to Dallas, Fort Smith, Fayetteville, includes southeast areas of Oklahoma, and almost all the way down to Houston, but not quite. So this is a huge area, guys, and unfortunately, I do think this is going to be a pretty big event. Now, I'm not one of those people that's going to say we're going to have an outbreak of tornadoes, 5-6 days away. I'm not going to do that. If other people want to do that, that's cool, but I'm not going to do that. As we get closer and it looks like it could potentially be an outbreak, then I'll start honking the horn at it. But at day 6, very long area to talk about. This is for next Wednesday. This is a slight risk. A level 2 out of 5. They're already saying it's going to be in place. This stretches from Tallahassee, Florida, all the way up to the Jersey Shore, southern Jersey shoreline, Atlantic City, all the way up to the D.C., Baltimore area. It includes a good chunk of Virginia, Virginia Beach, all of South Carolina, you might as well say. Greensboro, Charlotte, Raleigh, Columbia, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, Savannah, Augusta, Greenville, Spartanburg area, Macon, and all the coastal regions of Georgia, the Carolinas, Virginia, up to Maryland, the Delmarva. Slight risk, and that means, hey, there's a 15% risk of any severe weather, okay? And I do think the bigger threat, as of now, I'll talk about this more for day 6, Wednesday, is probably damaging winds, but we're definitely going to have a tornado threat with this too, and this could trend one way or the other. All right, so that is that. Let's talk about the system. Now, this is the portion of the video that can confuse people, so I'll just try to explain it in a very simple way here. So this is the 500 millibar pattern. What the atmosphere is kind of like way up in the atmosphere, 18,000 feet up in the air, give or take 1,000 feet. So the blue area is lower pressure, and then the yellows and the oranges you see is higher pressure. The blue area, lower pressure, is typically some sort of storm system. The flow around the blue area is going just like this. Okay, so just remember that. So that means that as this is approaching, it's bringing in winds out the southwest. So it's bringing in that warmer air from the south, lower latitudes, and a more moist air. So, and then the blue area itself is just a storm system. In this case, a mid-level low. So it's bringing weather with it. Okay, whether that's severe weather, rain, snow, etc. So we start to get into Monday. All right, this progresses across the southwest, probably bringing unsettled weather across the Rockies, etc. So we start to get into Tuesday morning. At this point, this is right over the southern Rockies and the southwest. So already, some people call it the right exit region, but already at this point, okay, the system is moving this way. So this is bringing in a stout flow out of the southwest, because flow around this low pressure goes just like this. When we talk about this a lot during hurricane season, okay? Now, this is going to fully get attached and become like an amplified trough here in the next days following. But flow is going just like that. You got little impulses of energy firing off the base of the trough and then ejecting this direction. This also helps to pull in that southerly flow, really enhances it, pulls in all that ripe, moist air from the south. And I'll show you a prime example of that when we look at dew points here in a second. So just think of this blue area as a big storm system. And as it continues to progress forward, we get into Tuesday evening, which will be a big day of severe weather. And then, of course, a lot of people want to think, well, shouldn't the severe weather be happening right here? Well, no. This is the actual upper low. We got kind of a surface low ejecting across this area at the base of this trough, which is right in here. So the flow is going around the system just like that. So this is bringing in that right moist air right in that enhanced risk area, kind of in the Mississippi Delta region. So it's kind of hard to explain. Just remember, we don't live at 500 millibars. 500 millibars, which is 18,000 feet up in the air. But it's a great way to gauge the pattern. All right, but this continues. It has a positive tilt at this point. I'll talk about that more here in a second. We get into Wednesday morning. This begins to tilt more neutrally, which is just kind of digging straight down. And then as we're starting to get into Wednesday night and the Thursday morning, this begins to take on more of a negative tilt, it looks like, as it's beginning to kind of go like that. And it's really becoming a much stronger storm system at this point. And we have to watch the storm system right behind it. We're not going to talk much on that, but this could do something funky also right behind it for sure. So that is our storm system. This just blue blob that swings in off the Pacific. And then it just continues to just progress eastward, get stronger and stronger with a surface low that will likely develop and really strengthen, but there will be likely multiple impulses of energy. Now, a great way to also look at this is the 500 millibar vort. So this is energy in the atmosphere. So this is our big chunk of energy that is reflected in the blue in the last graphic right into here. And now watch as we progress forward. This is kind of tilting kind of like this, saying that you see how this strung out energy right here and kind of the vibrant colors, the reds, the oranges, yellows, and pinks. See how it's kind of tilted like this? It's kind of positively tilted, but I want you to watch as we progress this forward into Wednesday, how it kind of begins to dig more so kind of like that. So it becomes more neutrally tilted, digging straight down. And then, get this off, we progress even further. Come on, work with me here. And then it starts to get kind of a negative tilt, which means it's tilting like that. Okay, so that means that you have a strengthening storm system. So remember, this is a positive tilt. Okay, this is a neutral tilt, which is when it's going from positive to neutral, it's strengthening. And this is a negative tilt. This means that we probably have a powerful storm system, whether it's a powerful winter storm, powerful severe weather event, mixture of both. And this could be a mixture of both. So just because you have a positive tilted trough, which normally is a weaker storm system, that doesn't mean you can't get some really bad severe weather. Some of our worst severe weather events have been from positively tilted troughs, and this will be strengthening also. So just remember that. So just a kind of explanation on the 500 millibar pattern there. Now, this is a 500 millibars too. So this is I like to look at this because this is the way I approach it. I don't really start to look more so at the surface until we get a little bit closer. When we really start to fine tune these surface lows, that really start to show up as we get closer. Where is going to be the exact placement of these? That will tell us where your best low-level kinematics, your wind energy will be, which will tell us probably your best tornado threat and even damaging wind threat will be, but especially tornado threat. So I like to look at the 500 millibar chart this far out, and these are 500 millibar winds. So these are winds as far as knots, at 18,000 feet up in the air. It tells us where our best energy is. So we can see this little impulse of energy right here as we're getting into Sunday morning, 12Z. So we got this little impulse of energy. This could bring some, this could likely bring some storms into this little energy right here. This will likely bring a little bit of storm activity Sunday across areas of the southern plains. But that's not going to be a big event. The big one is what follows. You see this big dip coming in right here across the southwest, and you see all this flow right into here. You see, it says, when I put the cursor over there, it says 55, 60 knot, and we call it the mid-level jet. This is winds, going at about interstate speed, about 18,000 feet up in the air. So the winds are whipping really far up. Now we'll look at that low-level jet, 850 millibars, give or take, 1,000 millibars. When we get a little bit closer, that reflects more up against that surface low. So we continue to move forward here. We get into Monday afternoon. We start to get a lot of flow out the southwest at this point. So I'll draw, see how the flow's coming in just like that. Remember when I was just showing you the big blue blob a couple panels back? It was over this area, and I was showing you how it was kind of, the flow was tilting around here, but this is amplifying. So you start to lose the flow on top of that mid-level low, but down here at the bottom, I mean, it's really coming. You see that these wind barbs right here, how the flag portion of it's facing that way? That means that the winds are coming out of that way. So that's why I drew this arrow. So this is coming in just like this, bringing a lot of flow like here. But you got to think, in the lower levels, the winds could be going more like this, depending on where that surface low is, which really affects the lower level winds more. But you keep going here, and you start to get into, let's just take it all the way to Tuesday morning. This is when the system really begins to, it's still positively tilted at this point, most likely, but this is when it begins to get in the phases of really strengthening. So we're starting to get an increased mid-level jet, approaching 80, 90, in some cases 100 knots. A lot of wind energy right in here, yanking in all that moisture from the southwest. And then we start to get into that Tuesday afternoon time frame. There's that mid-level max right here, over 100, 115 knots. A lot of wind energy kicking up over Texas. But really, there's a lot of wind energy right over this moist sector that's developing because of all this moisture getting pulled in from the south and southwest. And wherever this surface low develops, which is probably going to be somewhere into here, okay, that's where you have your best overlapping conditions. And this continues, and this really becomes even stronger as we're getting into Wednesday. So this system just bringing a ton of wind energy right into here. Okay, so not only are we going to get storms, a storm potential across the eastern seaboard, we're going to get a lot of strong winds with it also, as we'll have most likely a strengthening storm system over the east coast. So big time wind fields screaming over this area before the cold front whips in behind this, what at this point will be a full-fledged upper trough. So if we're getting a closer look at the dew points here, remember, the dew points respond from that flow from the southwest or south. So this is Monday afternoon. We already got a pretty nice atmospheric pool of moisture building in across Texas, even all the way up into the Arklatex. So this is Monday afternoon, and this has probably already been aided from that first little impulse of energy. But then the main pulse of energy moves in as we're getting into Tuesday morning. Deeper moisture begins to develop, and this is just one operational run of the Euro. So we got dew points all the way up into the 60s, up into Tulsa, the Oklahoma, Arkansas border, all the way up into the Arklatex and the Shreveport. We got this solid sector of moisture. And remember, dew points in the 60s and higher, that's when you can really walk outside and say, hey, okay, there's definitely a little bit of juice in the air. It's definitely more humid. So as we're starting to get into Tuesday afternoon, the moisture field deepens even more. We get a stout, moist sector right over Louisiana, all the way up into Arkansas, and then look at eastern Texas, and we even have some pockets. And we're probably going to have this. These global models aren't always the best with this kind of stuff, but it's the only thing we can look at this range. We get dew points in the upper 60s, low 70s, plenty of surface moisture as a what we call thermodynamic to really go with the kinematics that we just showed you, all that wind energy from the 500 millibar flow. So you keep this going and we get into Tuesday evening, and then this field of moisture begins to shift eastward and along it, the atmospheric ingredients begin to shift east, and then we're done with the severe weather. Once those dew points begin to crash, and these aren't temperatures, these are dew points, begin to crash into the 20s and 30s and 40s, you're done with severe weather as we get into Wednesday morning for this area. You start to get into the eastern U.S. where we do have that 15% risk. And I know I'm cutting off some areas like down in Florida, but we're going to be able to get detailed on all of this in the days to come. But, we're getting into Wednesday about mid-morning, dew points climbing into the 60s, into the low country of South Carolina, down to Georgia. So not a ton of moisture in this area. How fast is this storm system? That's a big thing that we watch for. It does show this kind of tongue of moisture that gets going across Georgia, the Carolinas, up into Virginia, ahead of what will likely be a line of storms. But do we get any kind of like supercells that develop out ahead of the main line, like here in the coastal plains of North Carolina, the PD of South Carolina? This is like next Wednesday evening. You got dew points into the 60s in these areas, and I would argue they're probably going to be higher. I would say dew points are probably going to climb into the 60s all the way up into the Delmarva. Once you get to that 60s dew point kind of point or area, that's when your ingredients for thermodynamic wise really begin to increase. But we're certainly going to have, I would say, more so a kinematic driven event for the eastern U.S., which is normally the case. A lot of times you get the best overlapping ingredients further to the west in the deep south, and then you lose an ingredient, normally the Cape levels, as you progress to the eastward. So we'll see what happens with that. But as far as the Cape levels in response to the higher dew points, and this is just the Euro ensemble. Even the blended guidance has Cape levels pushing over 1,000 joules per kilogram. And if you don't, you're like, Mitch, I don't know what joules per kilogram means. Just thinking, when you already have such a high-end kinematic environment, which you normally do in systems this time of the year, and you throw in even 500 joules per kilogram in Cape, that's enough to get severe weather going. In this case, you're probably going to have well over 1,000, and even the blended model guidance shows this for Southeast Texas. And then we start to get into Wednesday evening, and you're pushing over almost 1,000 joules per kilogram in areas of Louisiana. But even this 500, 600 joules per kilogram up here in northern Louisiana will get the job done. But I can almost guarantee you, as we get in the short range models, the CAMs is what we call it, it is going to handle the Cape a lot better than what globals do. But this is all we have to look at. Now we progress this into the mid-Atlantic, the southeast, and it doesn't show. It's what we call, I'm brain fart, but it's just a low Cape kind of event. It's not. I don't think you're going to have a ton of energy in the atmosphere, but this could. High shear, low Cape is what I was saying, or vice versa. So, shear, think of that as a lot of wind energy. But we could definitely have more than this, for sure. And we'll start to break down some soundings and stuff as we get deeper into the weekend, early next week. But it doesn't show a whole lot of Cape. But this is probably going to be higher, I think. And just kind of a radar simulation of what this could potentially look like. I just want to, and it's probably not going to look like this, but what I want you to notice here, and I'm just looking at tropical tidbits. This is Tuesday morning. You see all the clutter, the greens, the reds, the oranges, yellows, back west here. Here's all the thunderstorms developing Tuesday, the big day of interest. Developing across Arkansas, eastern Texas, just blobs of red and orange. But just you see how kind of just semi-discrete they are, kind of clustered up. But one thing you'll note as we get into the evening, it kind of develops into kind of a line. This looks like kind of a linear look, right? Sweeps through Mississippi, Alabama. And yeah, I mean, you see some splotchy areas of green, but for the most part, as we're getting to Wednesday, this is like more so like almost a squall line that moves through Georgia and the Carolinas up into Virginia. That doesn't mean you're not going to get thunderstorms out ahead of this. For example, it kind of pops this up right here. But this definitely does, like in most cases in these kind of conditions, is more so a line of storms. And I would bet on that. I would say, I like to throw my personal opinion into things sometimes. Well, especially a lot when we get closer. I would say for the eastern U.S. for Wednesday, this is going to be more driven off a squall line, a line of storms. But you get any storms that fire out ahead of the squall line, which is a highly unstable environment, then you're going to run the risk of tornadoes and tornadoes along the actual line itself. So that's a little update on the severe weather. We'll continue to get more and more detailed on it. There could be a winter weather side to this. This is starting off March 4th, Tuesday morning. Getting to Tuesday afternoon. Here's the low developing. Okay, kind of the upper low, if you will. There's some snow. I think we can get some snow. Flying around Colorado, this could turn into a larger event, but this is some heavy snow across eastern Colorado, Boulder, Denver, all those areas, on the foothills in eastern Colorado also, and could get some wet snow across, western areas of Oklahoma and Kansas. And then as this low ejects, it wants to show, as we're getting into Wednesday morning, some heavy snow breaking out across Wednesday morning, like across Kansas City and areas of eastern Kansas and western Missouri, all the way up into Iowa. And then this tries to develop into a more higher end event. And here it is, 978 millibar low. I mean, that's a strong low pressure. There's a little bit of cold air on top in northern lower Michigan, the UP of Michigan. This could bring a significant winter storm. And if the low pressure truly is that deep and you do have a winter weather side, it could absolutely bring blizzard conditions. And then this continues to move into southern Ontario, and then we'll have that wraparound flow. And I would bet on at least a moderate, could be an aggressive northwest flow event all the way down to the mountains, all the way down to the southern Appalachian Mountains as we're getting into, late next work week, Thursday, Friday. But this shows some heavy snow making its way down, some northwest flow for March. Hey, it happens. And who knows? We got to watch as it's kind of a secondary low develops off this trough. Might try to throw some snow back into New England. So we got a lot to figure out with this storm. There's another one behind it. This looks like more of a suppressed system, but we got to watch that. When you look at sort of the GFS really deepens this fast. Already has a 976 low, so therefore it cuts further north. Stronger system earlier on will want to go further north and gain latitude faster. But this is like next Wednesday morning has a blizzard. Not a long duration event, but has a blizzard across Iowa, sections of southeast Minnesota, snow all the way back down to northern Missouri, and across Wisconsin into the UP of Michigan. This is something to watch. If you live up here, I know I got some people tuning in from this area, I would watch this system for next week. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging. I know severe weather will be the big topic, but there will definitely be I want to say there definitely will be, but I want to say that if a winter weather side of this develops like this, it could be a quick-hitting blizzard. I really think it could. And that heads on out, and there's that northwest flow showing up on the GFS. So, as far as the snow signals, this is 48-hour periods out the Euro Ensemble. Shows a pretty heavy snow signal. We're going to have to get a little bit more detailed on this for like Denver and Colorado, but shows a pretty solid snowstorm signal across areas of Colorado. There's a little bit of a signal across the plains, but it really drops off, and then it blossoms again, say for the Great Lakes region. So get this in motion. Here it comes. Oops, I went past that time frame. Here it comes. You see how, it's not a lot. It's a few to, in some cases, several inch snowfall average mean, but there is a signal, just like the GFS and the Euro is showing, for a snow event. But I think the potential is there for this to be a high impact event up here just because of the winds. Okay, so we get more detailed on that as we get closer. But as far as today's weather, the big storyline is this pretty aggressive clipper diving down. We had some interesting weather yesterday across Ohio, a lot of hail and some of these cells that moved through. But this clipper's moving through, bringing some heavy snow across the UP of Michigan all the way down to northern lower Michigan. Little bit of northwest flow action across the northeast. But this will continue to progress its way into the northeast and bring a snowy start to your weekend. And I mean, this is even going to, as it kind of pivots through, it'll bring a shot of cold air and it'll bring kind of a blustery day. Heck, even across Ohio and Ohio Valley. So this is definitely the big storyline. That's about it. As far as watches, warnings, and advisories, a lot of special weather statements down here for the southeast. This is for a fire danger. It's getting dry. A lot of wind flow down here. Don't burn anything. No control burned. I mean, I wouldn't do it. So winter weather advisories they expire tomorrow for this system that's affecting the Great Lakes region right now. We got ongoing winter storm warnings right now, though, across the eastern UP and central UP of Michigan. And they continue up here for northeast Minnesota. Not a lot going on out west. Still the same. We got the flood advisories. But yeah, so also want to mention this, one thing that I'm just now noticing weather-wise does not show is red flag warnings. We got a lot of red flag warnings across the plains and the Midwest. So it's dry, it's windy, and we got a lot of wind advisories too. So we got high wind warnings up here. So I did just want to show you guys that, but to take a look at the risk of thunderstorms today, gotta get this all out my way here. Not seeing anything to worry about today. The risk of excessive rainfall, there's nothing either. So nothing too crazy in that category of weather. The southeast, quiet day, a little bit cooler the further northeast you get from the cold front that moved in last night. But this has really cleared out the air mass and ain't really nothing to talk about. So enjoy your Friday down here in the south and southeast, mid-Atlantic. Now up here in the northeast, a nice day also, but to your west and Canada, some energy will begin to move in and it'll start to snow later this evening for your, what is it? I think, today's the last day of February, so you'll have a snowy end of February. The end of meteorological winter is today. Tomorrow is the beginning of spring, meteorologically. It's crazy. I'm in the weather, but I always struggle with that word. So it always kicks my butt. But anyways, some snow will move in this evening. This will be a wet snow across the Adirondacks. It'll be a pretty snow, but like I said, it'll be wet. Heavier, definitely not dry. And the snow will swing across Vermont, New Hampshire, add an additional few to several inches. Heck, might even get a burst of snow down to Boston, but definitely the Berkshires. And then the snow will move into, basically the entire state of Maine by the wee hours of the morning. And then by the time we're getting into tomorrow, it'll be a much colder day with just maybe some snow squalls out there, maybe some snow showers drifting around. And I mean, all the way down to Ohio, West Virginia, you see it. And then it'll begin to calm down later into the weekend. But snowfall between now and the next 48 hours, Watertown can get a half a foot, Syracuse 3 to 4 inches, Buffalo maybe an inch or so, Rochester 2 to 3, Binghamton inch or two, Scranton might even get a little bit of snow. But we get in the Adirondacks. I mean, this purple area, that's 6 inches or more. I mean, some areas could get closer to 10. So definitely some snow into Vermont. Basically, the entire state of Vermont will get at least a little bit of accumulating snow. We head on a little bit up the road here, and areas of Maine, the rest of Vermont, and New Hampshire, and just about everybody in Maine will get a little accumulating snow. And definitely, I would say just about the entire 2 states of Vermont and New Hampshire will get just a little bit of accumulating snow, but elevation will play a big factor on who gets what. So the south central U.S., quiet. That'll change as we get into next week, but it's a beautiful, quiet day of weather today. Not a whole lot going on. But then we got the system moving in right now across the Great Lakes region. The rest of the Midwest is pretty quiet. But as the main system moves in, the actual upper low will swing in. This will bring in cold air with it. And by the time we get into this evening, we'll start to get some lake effect snow that lasts for several hours off of Lake Superior. But it might stop for a time. But then by the time we get into tomorrow morning, it might be ongoing again. And we'll get these lake effect snow streamers off Lake Superior, really affecting the central UP. And then they'll kind of flow more so out of the northwest across Lake Superior. So, they'll affect the far western counties of lower Michigan as we're getting into tomorrow morning. Could add up a few inches of snow. And then it'll begin to calm down somewhat as we get to the end of the weekend. But could continue just to get some lake effect snow off Lake Superior. I don't remember seeing this much lake effect snow into March like the last couple years, but I don't know. You guys tell me how normal or uncommon this is. But maybe it's just because we haven't had a lot of cold shots of air. I don't know. But this is how much snow is forecast over the next 48 hours. Some of this has already fell, but the eastern UP will continue to get a lot over the next several hours. If you live in the purple area, that's over 6 inches of snow that is forecast. Marquette going for 3 to 4. We head on down here to lower Michigan, and certainly a little bit of snow over the next 48 hours in some of these areas. Some people could squeeze in an inch in these western counties. So, out here in the west, quiet day of weather. I mean, nothing really to speak on. I think tomorrow will become a little bit different as we start to get some of that energy that will move across the areas we just spoke on with the severe weather, but they'll move into the western U.S. But today is a very nice day of weather. Very warm day across the country for the most part. Now, there's areas really far up north that's tucked in into some very cold temperatures, like the northern areas of North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then the western UP really locked in below freezing. This does include New England, interior New England. You guys are locked in below freezing too, but you don't have to go very far south before you start to get some more warmer air introduced for sure. So, and then out west, it's warm for just about everybody. Big warm up, big thaw out west. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and I'll talk to you again soon.